Welcome back to Boundaries and Boss Moves, where we talk about the real side of running a business, the boundaries we build, the leadership lessons we learn, and then the moves that we create that sometimes don't align with us. Yeah, I'm going to stop there because today I'm going to talk about the hard lessons that I learned. And I feel like it's a taboo subject. No one really talks about that. So I want to emphasize that as I speak about the lessons that I had to learn, I want to emphasize that those lessons were a way for me to move forward, to build a business that actually feels sustainable. For those of you who don't know me, I'm your host, Louisa Marie. And again, this podcast, Boundaries and Boss Moves, is really about talking about the stuff no one likes to talk about. I want to dive in. I want to admit out loud that I've made mistakes. I want to talk about the missteps, the money leaks. Yep, I'm going to talk about the money leaks. I'm going there. This episode is for anyone who has ever looked back and thought, I should have known better. Because here's the truth. You don't know what you don't know until you're in it. And sometimes the only way out is literally through. That is the only way. So if you've ever felt behind, embarrassed by your back end, exhausted by the mess you're constantly cleaning up, I want you to know that you're not alone. You're not alone. I've been there. I've done that. And I want to share what I've learned so you don't have to do it the hard way. So let's start with the season I thought that hustle was the only answer. Now, I want to pause and I want to emphasize that there's good hustle and bad hustle. Well, not healthy hustle versus unhealthy hustle. And I will get back to that. I'll circle back to that towards the end of this. So once you hear hustle, I don't want you to kind of shut down because sometimes people are like, well, I need a hustle to grow this business. Yes, I get that. I get that. And I'm not shaming hustle. So now that that's off the way, I'm going to talk about when I thought hustle was the only answer for me. I had huge goals, big goals. I had a vision, I had talent, and I thought the only way to prove I deserved success was to work harder than everyone else. That's been the story of my life. If I work harder than everyone else, I would get there faster and I would get there better. So you know what I would do? I would wake up at the crack of dawn. I stayed up late. I skipped breaks. I said yes to every opportunity, even the ones that weren't aligned with me, my ethics, my schedule. I were busy like it was a badge of honor. But beneath all that productivity, I was anxious. I was tired. And was worst of all, I was out of alignment with the kind of life that I actually wanted. Because when you think about those mistakes, I'm being vulnerable here. It's like, wow, yeah, I was so out of alignment with that. It's not what I wanted. And this is raw. This is authentic, right? Sometimes working harder, it leads to resentment and burnout. And I'm not going to dive too deep into burnout. If you haven't watched my first episode of Boundaries and Boss Moves, it's about my burnout story. I encourage you to go look at it. You can find it on my YouTube channel. And like I said, burnout, it doesn't feel like a dramatic crash. It feels like waking up one day, realizing you're tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. And success, it doesn't feel good anymore. I loved my work, but it didn't feel good anymore. I was part of what I built, but I was too tired to enjoy it. And underneath it all, I was quietly wondering, is this really the only way? The only way. I didn't need another productivity hack. I needed a reset, support, systems that would actually give me my time back. And today I'm telling you, there's a better way. When I think of this season of my life in my business, I think of the people who suffered the most. And I think this is why I was kind of taken aback. Even though I practiced this, I wrote this, I reviewed this. But as I'm sharing this publicly, I think of the time where my family was the one who paid the consequences for this because I was tired. They got my leftovers. I have a 6 and 7-year-old. At the time when I started my business, they were 1.5 and 3. So I would wake up at the crack of dawn, like I said, and I was tired. I was moody. I was grumpy. I survived. I mommied on. But that wasn't the best version of myself. And once my kids were in bed, you know who paid the consequences for that? My husband. And it feels heavy. However, I have been able to succeed even more because of that mistake that I've made. I'm able to be more conscious as a mom. I'm able to be more conscious as a wife. Now, let's talk about mistake number 2 that I made. In those early years, I told myself a very familiar lie. It's just easier if I do it myself. And I know a lot of you have done it. I know it sounds familiar. I built the business from scratch. I know how everything worked. So I held on tight to all of it. And some of you are doing the same thing. Again, I spoke about this a couple weeks ago. It's on my YouTube channel. How to go from control freak to CEO or something. I don't remember the title off the top of my head. What I realized was that control of me doing all of that, it came at a cost. I wasn't delegating, I wasn't resting, and truthfully, I didn't trust anyone to carry the vision, like I said before. Not because I didn't believe in people, but because I was scared. Scared it wouldn't be done right. Scared it would take more effort to explain than to just do it myself. And you know what? It's probably right. I can probably do it myself, but I'll probably do it quicker in some cases. Because technology, I should not be doing that. No. It takes me way longer. I was also scared that letting go would somehow mean losing control. But here's what I've learned. Holding on to everything isn't control. It's unsustainable, and eventually it leads to exhaustion, drop balls, missed opportunities. I think back of my earlier years, and I think of the clients that I lost because I had too much on my plate. I was overwhelmed. I was exhausted. Quite frankly, my tolerance level was so low. I was like, I don't have time for this. I don't. And I should have had time for it because they're my client. I should have made more of an effort, but I was just so tired. I lost valuable leads because I was at max capacity. You know, the sales on the follow-up. I didn't have time to follow up. And the times that I did jump on a discovery call, I was so flustered because I was so tired that I didn't give it my best. So I lost valuable leads. I made rushed decisions without strategy because guess what? I didn't have time to think, let alone plan. That wasn't me being in control of my business. And that's a tough pill to swallow. That was me being buried by it. Not just in it, by it. My business was burying me. Letting go was hard, but with the right person, the right systems, and a roadmap, it was a turning point for me. However, remember I said the right person? I want to say this. Hiring doesn't always solve the problem. It doesn't. Which will lead me to the third lesson that I learned. I like to call this the hiring mistakes and the cost of desperation. And I look at this season of my life and I cringe, but also it makes me happy because I've learned so much. There's a saying, well, as an online business manager and as someone who owns a VA agency, I'm quick to say, you know what, just hire someone. However, through my experience, I don't just throw that out. I don't just say, go hire someone, because I know that hiring someone isn't always going to solve your problems, which is why I have a different way of doing things. I do an operations assessment before I let you know if you should hire someone. Let me share my story. In the beginning, I hired out of desperation. Not clarity. I was like, okay, I need someone. I'm going to hire them. I wasn't clear on what I actually needed. I knew I needed help, but I didn't take the time to figure out what kind of help I needed. The first person I hired was a social media manager because I was like, I hate social media. I'm going to hire someone. And she was lovely. We worked together for a solid 2 years. She was great. However, I look at my Instagram at the beginning stages. I'm like, well, I wish I had some clarity. I wish I had like even brand identity. I wish that I had a content strategy, all that stuff. She would just do graphics. And I didn't know how to guide her. I didn't know I had to guide her, right? And some may argue a good social media manager may not need guidance. They need some guidance because if you don't have a brand identity, like where are we going? What are we doing? Right? So I hired her. And yes, it grabbed attention from people. And I wouldn't say Instagram gave me the most success in business, but I made connections through that. And then load increased. I got out and I networked with people, made connections with people. And the common consensus, oh, you have to hire, you have to get support. Okay, yeah. Cool. But what I didn't realize, and Again, I'm an operations expert. I should have known this from my business, but I did. I didn't even clue onto it. What I didn't think of is I don't have SOPs, which are standard operating procedures. I didn't have proper systems in place. And honestly, I didn't even have the bandwidth to properly train someone. So I started throwing people into my chaos and hope they could fix it. I had this brilliant idea one day that I was gonna, get interns because I didn't have the funds to pay someone properly. And I'm like, if I get interns, I can train them how to be a VA and we'll just work together. They just came into chaos. And guess what? Guess what? They couldn't fix what needed to be fixed. And that wasn't their fault. It was mine. It was mine because I was not prepared for that. I was hiring out of desperation. I needed a quick fix. And you know what? It did not work. It did not work. Some hires were helpful. Like I said, the social media manager briefly. Well, it was 2 years. Others, there was a total mismatch. Total mismatch. And when things fell apart, I was the one left cleaning up the mess. Now think about this. When you hire someone, there's onboarding, there's security measures in place. You got to pay for them to have an email. And then when it doesn't work out, you have to figure out, oh, where did I leave off? Like, what are we doing? And it was a bigger mess. It was a bigger mess. I made a huge mess. And I had to come to terms with the fact that I didn't make this mess because I was a bad leader. I don't think I'm a bad leader. Actually, I say this to me, but I think I'm a great leader. The fact is, I wasn't leading at that time. I was reacting. And it wasn't until I stepped back, I got clear on my needs, clarified my systems, and aligned my hires with my values that I started making good decisions about who I was going to bring in. I had to go through that alignment, that fine-tuning, and making sure my house was in order before I brought someone in to help me. For it to work, I would say. I didn't need just warm bodies to check off tasks. And that's often what people do. Just get someone to check off tasks. But you're still babysitting them. You're still hand-holding. I needed real support. People who could own their roles, think with me, and move the business forward. That is what I needed. And when I took the step back and got my house in order, I was able to find someone to help me with that. Now, if you're in that place, trying to hold it all together, but secretly craving support, know this. You don't need more hands. You need the right structure and the right support. And yes, it's possible, even if you've been burned before. Even if you've messed it up before, I did too. And a lot of us are quick to blame the new hire. Oh, they're terrible people. No, did you set them up for success? Now, don't get me wrong. There are some people who are horrible. Like, I'm just like, how are you even in this field? There are some people like that. But others, they weren't given a fair shot. Look, I messed it up too. And I figured it out one decision at a time. Now, I want to shift gears. And I want to talk about how I went from reacting to leading. I stopped thinking of support as a luxury and started seeing it as a requirement for sustainable success. That's how I stopped reacting and started leading. Support, it was an investment in the business. It wasn't a luxury. I took the time to map out my back end. I created SOPs. I stopped hiring based on panic and started hiring based on strategy. Strategy is an important component in hiring and moving on to the next level of your business. Most importantly, I would say the most important shift was I changed my mindset about delegation. I had this mindset that delegation was giving up control, and it wasn't. Delegation isn't about giving things up. It's about stepping into the role you're best meant to play in. Now, for some of you, that means actually leading a team. For you, that is something that I actually thoroughly enjoy doing, leading my team. Now, some of you, for others, you don't want to lead a team. That's like your worst nightmare. But what this means for you is letting someone else do the leading so you can stay in your zone of genius. Do you like creating art? Then go create art and let us lead the team. What is it that you enjoy doing in your business? And why is it stopping you? Like, why can't you accomplish that? Think about that. And know that if you're really cringing at the thought of leading a business, then that's okay, because not everyone's designed to lead a business. Not everyone is. What you need to know is real delegation gives you breathing room, and it gives your business structure, and it gives you the choice to grow with intention instead of pressure. Grow with intention instead of pressure. I'm sure that feels good. As I said, I'm like, I just want to take a deep breath. It's so nice to grow with intention and not out of pressure. Now, I shared the 3 lessons that I've learned the hard way. But I want to leave you with a takeaway. 3 things I want you to know. If you remember anything from this episode, this is the 3 things I want you to know. Hustle needs a strategy. Yes, hustle got you here. Hustle got me here. I'm a hustler. I'm a hustler, baby. Anyways, it's time and place for everything. There's a season for it. There's a season for hustle. I'm not here to shame hard work, but not all hustle is healthy. There's the kind of hustle that builds momentum, and then there's the kind that burns you out. And what's the difference? Strategy, boundaries, support. You're allowed to push, but not at the cost of your health. You're allowed to push, but not at the cost of your relationships or your joy. Your energy is a limited resource. Spend it wisely. Remember that. Remember that. Second thing I want you to remember. Desperation is a terrible, terrible, terrible hiring strategy. And like I said, I know from experience. If you don't know what you actually need, hiring someone to just help won't solve it. It won't solve it. In fact, it might create more problems, create more chaos. Sometimes what you need first isn't a virtual assistant. Or an assistant or an OBM, maybe it's not. What you might need is a thought partner. Someone to walk alongside you and help you decide what you need. And that's okay. That is okay. This thought partner could be someone who just steps in and looks at the big picture for you. Maybe you struggle with looking at the big picture of your business. You have these big, bodacious goals, these big ideas, and you don't know how to get there. Maybe your business is chaotic and you don't know how to move from that. A thought partner, a consultant, like myself, I do one-on-one consulting. We can help you make sense of all that. I can help you make sense of all that. Before you bring someone in to do the work, bring someone in to help you define the work. Take a breath, get clear, then bring in the right person at the right time for the right reasons. And last but not least, delegation is not weakness. Repeat after me. Delegation is not weakness. It's leadership. Now, many of you don't think you're a leader, but if you have a business, guess what? You are a leader, like it or not. Like it or not. Doesn't mean you have to lead a team, but you are a leader. You are a thought leader. And you need to start thinking about things like, okay, what is the CEO version of you? What does that look like? I can tell you this much, they're not buried in admin tasks, because who started their business to do admin? I bet half of y'all didn't even know the administrative load that comes with running a business. CEOs are designed to cast vision, help with building systems, and empower the right people to carry out the vision of the business. That's what you should be doing. That's what you should be doing. Growth, it doesn't always feel good. And that doesn't mean that you're failing. Sometimes it looks like untangling past decisions and almost breaking down while you're talking about it. Sometimes it's realizing what got you here won't get you there, which is why I always recommend that you plan quarterly. Take a look at all the things. Sometimes growth is sitting in the discomfort of change while you figure out what leadership actually looks for you, because leadership looks different for everyone. If you're carrying the weight of early mistakes, questioning what's next, or wondering how to build a business that actually works for your life, you're not behind. You're in the middle of becoming a CEO your business truly needs. And trust me, it's worth it. It is so worth it. I hope that you hearing my story really helped you understand that everyone makes mistakes. And I hope that these lessons that I learned can save you from having to learn these same lessons. And if I'm too late, it's okay. Actually, it's never too late. It's never too late. If this episode hits close to home and you're realizing that it's time to stop reacting and start building with clarity, if you need someone to talk to, please, I urge you, book a free consultation on my website. It's www.adminwithrosa.com. I will also put it in the comments. I'll put it in notes. And I would love to hear from you. I really would. Also, I want you guys to stay tuned because I got something coming soon. I am opening the doors very soon to my Elevate and Empower program, which is a small group program with live chats, live strategy, live masterminding. It's for business owners who are ready to build smart systems, develop sustainable strategies, and get real support. So stay tuned because I'll be releasing more information on that very soon. But for now, just know this. There's a better way to running your business, and you don't have to figure it out alone. All right. Thanks for listening to Boundaries and Boss Moves. I'll catch you next time. Until then, be kind to your business and even kinder to yourself. And don't forget that boundaries are boss moves.